Welcome to Conspiracist. Today, we are undertaking a deep dive into, well, the pretty significant hypothesis, the idea of intentional government concealment of evidence related to something called Project Bluebeam delusions.
hmm
Our exploration will focus on the core claims, what the theory actually is, the context surrounding it, and we'll try to objectively evaluate the arguments for and against this idea of a large-scale deception.
Right. Specifically involving things like simulated alien invasions.
Exactly. We want to understand the main points of Project Bluebeam as it's been described, look at when it first popped up, and how it might connect to other things people talk about, like UFO sightings or government actions.
And the goal here is really assessment, looking at the evidence, or lack thereof, and the reasoning presented in the available materials.
Okay, so where do we start? Where did this whole Project Bluebeam idea come from?
Well, it seems to trace back pretty clearly to around 1994. The name most associated with it is Serge Monast. He was a Canadian journalist.
Serge Monast, 1994. And what was his central claim?
His main proposition, fundamentally, was that there was this alleged secret plan. Orchestrated, he said, by NASA and the United Nations.
NASA and the UN. Okay, let's unpack that. What were they supposedly trying to do with this project? What was the objective?
According to Monast, the core goal was, well, nothing less than establishing a unified global government, a one-world government.
And how were they supposedly going to achieve that?
Through a really elaborate deception, a staged alien invasion scenario. He actually detailed a four-stage process he believed was underway.
4 stages. Okay, can you walk us through those? What was step 1?
So the first stage, as he described it, involved using holographic projections, projecting images of various religious figures like gods or prophets into the sky all around the world.
Holographic religious figures. Okay.
Yeah.
What was stage 2?
Stage 2 was envisioned as this massive space show, again using three-dimensional holographic images, but this time to simulate alien spacecraft, maybe battles, other phenomena up in the atmosphere.
A global holographic space event? That sounds, technologically incredibly ambitious, especially for the mid-90s.
Hugely ambitious, yes.
What were the next 2 stages then, after the holograms?
Stage 3 supposedly moved into direct manipulation, using telepathic and electronic means to influence people's thoughts and emotions directly, sort of beaming thoughts into heads, if you will.
Wow, okay. Direct mind control territory. Yeah. And the final stage?
The fourth stage was described as kind of universal supernatural manifestation, but induced electronically. Essentially, a tech-generated global religious or supernatural experience designed to unify everyone under, well, a new belief system, paving the way for that one-world government.
It's a very layered, very complex scenario he laid out.
Extremely.
You mentioned the holographic religious figures. It does ring a bell. Didn't Gene Roddenberry, the Star Trek creator, explore something similar?
That's a really interesting parallel, actually. Yes, he did. Roddenberry had an idea for a Star Trek story, which Paramount apparently rejected, where aliens would use technological simulations of Earth's religious leaders.
To do what?
To basically undermine existing faiths, sow confusion, before introducing their own alien religion or leader.
Huh. And that never made it into Trek.
Not into the show or movies, no. But he did later explore that concept in a novel he wrote. So it shows the idea of using advanced tech to manipulate religious belief was definitely floating around in speculative fiction, even before Monast.
Right. Interesting context. So going back to Bluebeam itself, beyond this grand goal of a one-world government, what were the other alleged motivations? Why go to all this supposed trouble?
Well, the primary driver, according to Monast and discussions that followed, was really dismantling existing structures. National identities, traditional religions, they had to go.
To be replaced by?
By a single global identity, a unified world religion, which would then make this one world government, or New World Order as it's often called, much easier to establish and maintain.
Okay, that's the big picture goal. But sometimes you hear other angles mentioned in online discussions, like maybe military spending.
Yes, that's another motivation often brought up. The idea of manufacturing consent. If you create a common enemy like a terrifying alien invasion.
Everyone gets scared and supports huge defense budgets.
Exactly. It unites people, or supposedly would, against this external threat, making massive military spending seem necessary and acceptable globally.
Okay, so that's the theory and its alleged motivations. Now let's pivot to the criticisms. What do skeptics say about all this?
Well, the overwhelming critique is that Monast's claims are essentially unfounded. There's just no credible, verifiable evidence presented to back any of it up.
So it's seen more as, paranoia?
Critics often frame it that way, yes. or as reflecting anxieties about things that are real, like rapid technological change, globalization, fears about government power. But they argue the theory itself is built on speculation, not fact.
And there are concerns about the potential harm if people widely believe this kind of thing, right?
Definitely. Critics point out that promoting these kinds of theories can seriously erode trust in actual institutions, governments, science, media. It fuels misinformation, and it can distract from, real problems that need addressing.
You see it dismissed online sometimes pretty bluntly, like people calling it bonkers or comparing it to, I don't know, comic book plots.
Right, like something out of The Watchmen, perhaps. That kind of comparison comes up. And there's also the argument that, if governments really wanted more control, our current methods of division may be more effective.
How so?
Well, the thinking goes, staging a massive, overt alien invasion would draw so much attention and scrutiny directly onto whoever was orchestrating it, whereas arguably, fostering political division, social unrest, those might be quieter, less risky ways to maintain or increase control.
That's a fair point. And
Yeah.
then there's the sheer technological challenge. You mentioned it earlier regarding the 90s.
Absolutely. The kind of holographic projections and especially the global mind control elements described are, well, they're incredibly difficult, if not impossible, even with today's technology, let alone 30 years ago.
Can you elaborate on the tech side, like the holograms?
Sure. Creating convincing, large-scale, three-dimensional images visible globally, stable in the atmosphere, the power requirements, the projection technology, the data rates needed to transmit that kind of information worldwide simultaneously. It dwarfs anything we could do then, and it's still hugely problematic now. Think about the bandwidth needed compared to, say, early radio or TV signals. It's orders of magnitude more complex.
So the feasibility, especially back then, is a major sticking point for critics.
A huge one, yes.
Now, Project Bluebeam doesn't really exist in a vacuum, does it? It often gets connected to other conspiracy theories or real-world events.
That's very true. You see it flare up again in connection with contemporary events. For instance, when there were those mysterious drone sightings over parts of the U.S. a while back, Bluebeam theories resurfaced online.
Why does that happen?
It seems these kinds of theories gain traction in times of uncertainty. When something strange happens that isn't immediately explained, like unusual aerial sightings, theories like Bluebeam offer a ready-made, albeit elaborate, explanation. They provide a kind of black-and-white narrative.
A clear answer, even if it's a frightening one.
Right. And that can be appealing when things feel confusing or ambiguous. But this tendency can also be exploited.
Exploited how?
Well, unfortunately, there are documented cases of extremist groups latching onto conspiracy theories. They can use them for recruitment or to push radical agendas.
By creating an us versus them mentality.
Precisely. These narratives often foster division, painting a picture of a secret, malevolent group, the them manipulating events, and positioning the believers as the enlightened us. The whole New World Order conspiracy theory, which is closely related to Bluebeam themes, often functions this way, identifying some shadowy global elite as the enemy.
And sadly, sometimes these beliefs have spilled over into real-world violence.
Tragically, yes. There have been instances where individuals, apparently motivated by conspiracy beliefs like the New World Order, have planned or carried out violent acts. Thinking about things like the HARP facility, for example, which some believed was a mind control or weather control weapon linked to this supposed global elite.
It's also interesting how the general conversation around UFOs, or UAP as they're often called now, has changed since Monest's time.
That's a really significant shift, isn't it? Back in the mid-90s, UFOs were largely considered fringe. Tabloid stuff, mostly.
But now you have government reports, congressional hearings.
Exactly. It's much more mainstream. And interestingly, within some conspiracy circles that discuss Bluebeam, this very shift itself is viewed with suspicion.
How so? They see the mainstreaming as part of the plot.
Some interpretations suggest exactly that this increased attention, the official reports, even whistleblower testimonies, that's all part of a deliberate long-term conditioning process, an age of deception, some call it.
Laying the groundwork, perhaps, for the eventual staged event.
That's the idea promoted in those circles, yes. That current UAP discussions might actually be part of a sophisticated disinformation campaign designed to make a future faked alien contact or invasion seem more plausible.
So real sightings or reports get twisted into evidence for the conspiracy.
It becomes a kind of self-sealing logic. Now, we should acknowledge governments have historically engaged in psychological operations, psyops, involving deception. That's documented.
But that doesn't automatically mean Project Bluebeam is real.
Correct. Acknowledging historical precedent for government deception is one thing. Accepting the specific, extraordinary claims of Project Bluebeam without evidence is quite another.
This brings us to the psychology of it all. Why do people find these complex, sometimes frightening conspiracy theories appealing?
That's a huge area of research. Fundamentally, conspiracy theories often serve a need for meaning and control when big, confusing, or distressing events happen.
Like a pandemic or a major political upheaval.
Exactly. And the official explanations seem inadequate, or maybe just too simple or random. A conspiracy theory can offer a comprehensive narrative. It assigns agency, suggests there's a hidden plan, which paradoxically can feel more comforting than chaos.
Are there specific thinking patterns or biases involved?
Yes, several cognitive biases seem to play a role.
Yeah.
One is proportionality bias, the gut feeling that big events must have big causes. A lone actor or simple incompetence feels disproportionate to, say, a major assassination or disaster, so people look for a bigger conspiracy.
Okay. What else?
There's also patternicity, or epiphenia, our tendency to see patterns and connections even in random noise. And related to that is agency detection, the inclination to assume that things are caused by intelligent agents, even when they might be natural or accidental. We're kind of wired to look for intention.
And are there links to personality traits as well?
Research suggests some correlations, things like high levels of schizotypy, which involves traits like suspiciousness and unusual beliefs, a general belief that the world is a dangerous place, maybe lower levels of analytical thinking, and even, interestingly, a higher receptivity to what researchers term pseudo-profound bullshit.
Okay. And the social aspect must be huge now with the internet.
Absolutely critical.
Yeah.
Online communities, social media, they create echo chambers where these beliefs can be shared, validated, and reinforced. You find your tribe, people who agree with you, and misinformation, whether it's deliberate or not, can spread incredibly rapidly. You see Project Bluebeam comments pop up constantly under UFO videos on TikTok or Instagram, for example.
And trying to argue against these beliefs once they take hold can be tough.
Very tough. There's something called the backfire effect, where presenting evidence against a deeply held belief can sometimes paradoxically make the person believe it even more strongly. They find ways to dismiss the evidence or see it as part of the conspiracy itself.
It becomes part of their identity, almost. It can, yes. Conspiracy theories can really solidify that in-group identity against the perceived out-group, the imagined conspirators, or the supposedly naive masses who don't see the truth.
So, wrapping up our deep dive today on the hypothesis around Project Bluebeam delusions and government concealment, it really shows this complex mix of, well, speculation, genuine fears about technology and power, and that basic human drive to find explanations. The core claims, the staged invasion, the holograms, the mind control, all for global domination. They're certainly dramatic, captivating for some, but they face really significant hurdles.
Yeah.
Deep skepticism from critics and a fundamental lack of verifiable proof.
Right. And the fact that the theory keeps resurfacing, adapting to new events, really highlights how enduring our fascination is with uncovering secrets, with understanding things that seem unexplained.
It absolutely underscores the need for critical thinking, doesn't it? When we're faced with these extraordinary claims, we need to evaluate them carefully, weigh the evidence, and also consider the potential impact on society if unsubstantiated theories become widespread. I think a key takeaway here is precisely that: the importance of cultivating those critical evaluation skills, especially now, navigating this incredibly complex information landscape we live in. There are real dangers in both unfounded, pervasive suspicion and in just passively accepting any narrative that comes along.
A crucial point to consider. Thank you for joining this exploration of what is undoubtedly a prominent modern conspiracy theory. Thanks for listening to Conspiracist.